So we're back out on the boat again today. We're going to be doing some diving. This whole area behind me is notorious for shipwrecks, and we've discovered a new site which is completely uncharted, and it's a very interesting wreck. We don't actually know which wreck it is yet, so we're going to do some more diving on it today and hopefully find some more clues, and we're going to show you what we found. So this site comprises of an old anchor, and there's a couple of old cannons down there, and there's within the sand there's actually some fabric of the actual ship itself, so there's some old timbers still in the sand, and all around there's a variety of little small finds and little small bits and pieces, so it's an interesting site to dive, and we're going to go and do that now. Today we are going to be using a nitrox gas mix to dive with, which will allow us a slightly longer dive time at this site's deeper depth. We follow the shot line down to the wreck area. At a depth of almost 30 metres the light fades, but there is little kelp at this depth, which makes searching much easier. A short distance away lies a large ship's anchor. This is a similar shape to an English admiralty type and sits within the wreckage area, so was most likely still on the ship when it went down. This heavily encrusted iron object is actually the remains of a small iron cannon. It seems to have been quite a large bore for its length, so likely to be a type of carronade, which would have been used for close range defence. Scattered all over the site are also the remains of broken bottles such as this glass base. To one side of the site in a sandy area lie a collection of iron concretions. Some of these appear to be part of the ship's rigging. Also in this area are lumps of green coloured rock, which would indicate a copper content still within them. One small patch of sand has produced a number of small finds, mostly in the form of copper coins. Most of these are very corroded, but they are still worth picking up, as some still show details which may help later on with identification. Next to this is an area of broken china fragments, and nearby some ship's structure still survives, in the form of some large timbers which still seem to be connected together within the sand. It doesn't take long at this depth to reach our permitted dive time, so it's time to make a nice steady ascent to the surface. At around 6 metres, we stop for several minutes to allow any nitrogen bubbles still in our system to clear and lower our risk of decompression sickness.
Good dive? Oh, good. That's lovely down there, isn't it?
It's alright, is it?
Absolutely beautiful, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere.
It's nice to hear.
Everywhere can hold some treasure, can it? Every little crack, every little cranny has the potential for something good. Like.
Is that right? So we're all back now, and we're going to go and we're going to show you some of the recoveries of artefacts that we've made from this wreck. So starting off, we've got a couple of examples of this green rock which we've been finding down on the wreck site. There's so much of this down there, I'm kind of believing that it's more of a cargo than it is like a ballast, but it's, when you look at it, it appears to be some kind of melted copper. I think it's copper slag. We've had a few pieces of this looked at by people who are quite into this kind of thing, and they all think that it's copper slag from the melting process. It probably had some value still, possibly on its way to Wales or somewhere like that to get resmelted maybe. And then here we have a block which is actually from the carriage of a cannon. So this is actually where the trunnion of the cannon would sit in this piece here. That was found next to one of the cannons which is down there. So it's a nice heavy bronze block. And then we've got several examples of these broken bottles. There's broken bottles down like this, all down there all over the site. And it's a shame I haven't been able to find an intact one yet, but and then we have these pieces here are actually the ends of the telescope. So that's the big end, and that's the little eyepiece end there, and that's actually the little cap which goes over that. But the middle section between the two had completely disintegrated. That's gone, unfortunately. Then we've got a lead drop weight. These would be used for sounding, so this is a sounding weight. This would be dropped down to see how deep the water was underneath the ship. And then we've got some interesting little bits and pieces here. We've got a little puller and lots of little draw attachments. That's this little set of dividers for chart work, so it's good that they've survived. They're in quite good condition, maybe from the captain's drawer area or something like that. We've got an old syringe here which has gone to bits. I think that's made of pewter. And then these are parts of a musket. That's the armoured butt plate, and that's the remains of the trigger guard. It's fortunately in a bit of a bad way, but there's at least one musket on the ship. And then there's the coins. So almost all of these are copper half pennies. Unfortunately, all of this pile here are actually so corroded that there's very little detail left on them. Can't really see many of these. But out of all of the coins, almost 200 here, these ones here have all got some detail on them. And a lot of these are very interesting. That one there is just a standard George III halfpenny. But this one here is a Swansea halfpenny, and you can just about there see Swansea Castle on it. That's an interesting one. And then we've got coins from Liverpool, South Wales, we've got Anglesey, we've got all over. I think there's a Manchester one here as well. So whether or not these represented where the ship had been, or where people came from who were on the ship, or whether or not someone on board was collecting these, it's a total mystery, because we still don't actually know what wreck this is, where it was going and where it was coming from. It's just all we have left is these bits and pieces to try and figure it out. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully in time we'll continue to dive the site, and we might even work out what this ship was and where it was going, and we can update you with the full story. But as of at the moment, we still don't actually know the name of it. So it would be an interesting one to find out. We know a rough date, we know roughly what it was carrying, but the actual identity is still a mystery, and the clues are probably still down there waiting to be found. So we'll catch you next time.